We are back. We wrap up what might be the most frustrating race of the season, I will call it.
Not for me.
Slow. Well, let's just say the first hour and a half. I've never heard Martin Brundle so annoyed. The announcers just, I've never heard the protests like that. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? And that didn't end.
No.
So Chip, you're lucky that you didn't have to sit through it because
I
actually
actually caught the race. Like
you
I
actually
caught the race. Yeah, exactly. I was like, this works out fantastic for me.
It ended up taking up your whole morning.
Yeah.
For some, it was worth it. For me, it was surely not.
No.
Again, for a Ferrari.
Definitely was not for you.
This freaking kid can't catch a break, man. Not one. This is 2 races in a row where he is clearly the fastest on track. We got Max is 10 seconds behind him. Like this is his race 100%. 2 races in a row. The engine breaks down. Binotto has to go. They call him in at the worst possible time, and they put him in 4th. They don't even put him with a fighting chance. They put him back in 4th, and his race is over. So my question has to be, can you trust Ferrari in what a long-term battle like we saw last year with Mercedes and Red Bull? Can you trust them against Red Bull? The answer is clearly no. The answer is clearly no. From the
if
top,
the word is trust, absolutely not. No.
From the top, bottom, I don't trust them. I don't trust Binotto to make the right call. I don't trust their strategy. The engineers seem like they can box pretty well. All right, I trust those guys. Charles, I don't trust to necessarily qualify and not ruin the car near the new gearbox. It's the team all around. When they're at their best, I think they are the best. But consistency, non-existent.
I think there's reason Seb didn't bring a world championship to Ferrari, and I think it's mainly Binotto. I don't think they really had it going on. 2018, that was another example of a long battle, and the tides turned when Seb gets a little frustrated with Lewis. Instead of playing calm, he drives right into him, and then from there, Ferrari just fall apart. It was just bad juju. I don't know. I want to see a long title battle, but I need to be convinced this is going to be a long title battle. Charles only wins races that he starts from pole. He needs to have some comeback wins. He needs some bulletin board wins. You got to win some second place starts, third place starts if you're going to be world champion. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. There's 2 things the 2 things I want to touch on with Charles. One, that point of him not being able to win a race without starting on pole. I think that's a massive fact that is very telling in terms of, like, now this is not against Charles as a driver at all, but his ability to kind of come back and ultimately like climb, like we've seen Max do it time and time again. For example, like when we're really talking about this season, we're talking about is it Max or Charles up until we see something different. And we've seen Max climb that ladder time and time again. We just saw Lewis go from last to, 6th a couple of races ago. Like, there's guys that can do that. Charles just has not proven to do that. Now, touching on Monaco in particular, the bad luck streak, like last year, that I'm putting that on Charles, crashing the car, and then, ultimately they just weren't able to get that thing ready. This year, dude, this last weekend was just straight up heartbreaking if you're a Charles Leclerc fan. I mean, that was horrible. And the strategy or lack thereof, or honestly, it looked like a pure mistake to me. I thought Ferrari actually fucked up. I looked like they didn't mean to pit both of them at the same time.
It was
time.
One lap too early.
He's like, stay out. Like, well, what are you guys doing, dude? This guy's leading. So, I mean, that to me is like, especially if you're a Charles fan, dude, that's just crushing. So the streak continues, and now we look to 2023.
Yeah,
and see if we can do it again.
It's clear at this point in the season, in the constructors, I don't think there's a question that Red Bull has a leg up. But in the title fight, Charles very much should be either tied with Max or leading at this point.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say
Oh, absolutely.
Charles is probably the best Saturday driver we have. When Charles puts in his best lap on a Saturday, I think he's shown that he might be better than Max in certain tracks, I'm sure, can be better. But I think Charles in George could maybe make the argument because we've seen him do in the Williams. So it's just we don't really know yet. But Charles has been doing it for a while now. When he gives his best, he usually is the leading guy on the track. It doesn't pull through. So it's just at this point, Red Bull, what I worry about is, do we get another season where it's Red Bull pulls a single way, we're in race 15 and it's Charles has to go rattle off 5 just to make it a title fight. You know, I want to keep this thing. This seemed like it was starting. This seemed like it was going to be a very competitive season. I don't want it to kind of slip away on us this early.
Yeah, I think going towards Baku, they could easily bounce back, but it could shift either way. It's such a close title fight. Checo's in the title fight now. That's very exciting. We'll see how Max responds to that. We'll see how the team responds to that. I don't know. I'm not going to rule him out. He definitely has his mistakes, and I think there's the potential. But it's a long season.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Kyle. I just quickly just gonna say, just off that point again, just getting back to Charles. Charles needs to show us here actually pretty soon that he is able to bring that heat if he's in P2 or 3 or 4 and climb that ladder. That's the one thing that we've been, I don't even want to use the word robbed of, but have not seen yet out of Charles in a championship caliber car, which is this year. So, let's see him do it. And we'll probably dive into it a little bit more, but we absolutely need to discuss what's happening right now between Checo and Max, because that's Red Bull's going to start having some decisions to make here pretty soon about who's going to let who go. I mean, go by, not leave the team. I mean, go overtake the other.
Yeah. I'm a little hopeful because obviously Max's prick dad Yost came out and he bitched about not favoring Verstappen's strategy. Max shook it off. He didn't give a shit. And Horner said, that's racing. We're here for the team. These people are employees of the team. There's 400 other employees in the factory. During the Seb's 4 years of domination, there were no team orders between him and Mark Webber. Those two
Of course
fought.
not.
Yeah, they fought. They crashed occasionally. I mean, Danny and Max, they fought a little hard. I think there's a little bit more respect between Checo and Max right now.
Absolutely. And I think between, especially if you got Horner as the captain of that ship, it's going to be listen, boys, gloves are off. Let's go. Just don't jeopardize each other. But at the end of the day, we're going to do what's best for the team in that particular moment. It's race by race, moment by moment, turn by turn. We're going to make whatever decision makes sense at that time. And, right now, Checo has done nothing but show, hey, man, we are 1-2 right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think we're at the point in the season where things are pretty much where they're going to fall, right? And barring the title fight's there. We know it's Checo, Max, Charles. Barring any crazy adjustments from Mercedes, George could maybe pop in there, but that's pretty much plus 15,000, something crazy odds. The midfield as well seems to be relatively starting to kind of play itself out. So if you go through it, McLaren 59 points, Alpha 41, Alpine 40. So that will be a fight that we're going to see back and forth all year. And then Alpha and Haas, AlphaTauri and Haas going at it. So I don't think there will be these changes where Alpha might or Haas might overtake Alpha, but for the most part, I think we're kind of set with which teams are going to be duking it out for the rest of the year.
I think that 3-team battle right there is going to be sick. Alonso versus Lando. Ocon's been quicker than Alonso too, which is kind of slept on. But I mean, I'd like to see Vettel he's been a little bit in there a little bit recently, but that team's no good. Midfield's awesome to watch.
I mean, and if you look at how impressive Lando's been in that McLaren. I mean, maybe Danny's just, and we can talk on that, he's just been that bad. But the fact that they're clearly in that 4th spot, pulling away from the midfield at this point, is clearly because Lando's the best driver of the rest of the top 6. Lando's the best of the rest, clearly.
He makes
if there's
it look
one guy
really
who
easy.
should be in a title fight right now, it's Lando Norris. If there's one guy
Yeah.
who you could say place him from the rest of the midfield, put him into a top car, and say he could take on Max, Charles, or Checo, I think it's him.
No, you get those vibes almost. It's very different in most ways, but you almost get those vibes of watching, George and a Williams, last year, where it was like, get this guy in a better car, and like obviously McLaren has notoriously been good, but what he's doing with this McLaren this year, especially with conversation, is this bad Danny or is this good Lando? I think it's absolutely good Lando and bad. It's probably a combination of both, but no, I've been watching these races and getting those vibes of just watching Lando somehow just fight it out and just climb and get these. It's like very reminiscent of watching George on Saturdays, in the Williams, or, even on some Sundays, just somehow duke it out and get those passes. You're just like, damn, man, just pure skill.
But I'm sure it's almost going to be tougher for Lando because he's locked into his contract, right? Like George, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. George just wanted to get points. Like for him just to get points was a massive W. Lando's a position where he's right on the edge of a team that could break through, probably not be in the title fight, but maybe be right there.
See, that's the thing, though.
And now
that's
he's locked in.
Right.
And when is he?
5-6 years.
Is he going to be 27 going now? I maybe have a chance at a title fight, but I'm probably been one of the best drivers on the grid for a decade now. Is that what
we have till I think it's 2026 until regulations change again. They could be 4 top teams if they just get a little bit more there. Lando's supposed to be there through all of it. There's hope. McLaren has history. Senna won a lot of world titles there. Lewis won the last title there. I think it is a more even playing field. We've seen it across all cars. We'll see what year-over-year development looks like with the salary cap. But Lando's there for a while. Danny is deciding if he's there for another year, I guess.
I think it's almost as much Danny having the pride to know that I can't do this for another 2 years. Yeah. I can't not get points in a car that my the number one driver is consistently getting points, and I'm clearly the worst driver by a lap in a lot of situations. So I think he'll go into another circuit if it has to come to that. He'll step away from the sport, or if maybe there's another spot and he could get out of his contract, he'll do that and go be on a team where he feels like he can make a difference in kind of moving the team forward.
Move to IndyCar.
To that, just before we move on too, let's keep in mind if they put another Lando-esque or even remotely close to Lando in the same car like this season that Danny's in, we might be having a very different conversation here about a 3 or 4 team battle. If they're finishing top 5, top 6, at least 1, if not 2 cars every single race. You know what I mean? It's not far-fetched to be like, okay, we're having, if you get another Lando that's finishing the same or roughly the same there, you're having a very different conversation. So McLaren, with this contract news that you sent Hoove a couple days ago, man, like that's, I'm still reeling from that. I can't believe they locked themselves into that. And the fact that the ball's in Danny's court, you hope you want to see him do the right thing, but I don't know. It's unbelievable.
That shows how invested McLaren was in Danny, because he's one of the highest paid drivers. He was on, it was either a 3 or 4 year contract, 3-year contract. And Zach Brown's been public about being disappointed with Danny's driving. Andreas Seidel, the team principal, same thing, but they're still supporting him. Danny's going to keep trying till the end. It's a little sad to see, but I don't know if he finds a mid-seat. Like we saw Sergio do this last year when he was adjusting to the new Red Bull. He sucked half the season. He figured it out. It's a new car. We saw that it doesn't really fit Danny's driving style. He's always been known as the last of the late breakers. This ground effects might not really work in his favor. He's got to adapt, or he's got to find a different circuit to race in, different series. Endurance racing, IndyCar. I mean, he'll be nuts in either of those, but
Yep, agreed.
I think an interesting, I'll just say a hypothetical, because there's not a lot to talk about at this point in the season. We're just kind of letting it play out. Is imagine if George and Lando were on a team for either car. George and Lando as a Mercedes pairing, or George and Lando as a McLaren pairing.
That's a perfect example of what I'm just talking about with if you were to imagine George in that car instead of Danny right now, I thoroughly believe
or Lando instead of Lewis even. I think Lando in that Mercedes with George, they'd be 5-6. They'd be 5-6.
100% agree. 100% agree. That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Put George in either one of those, or Lando in the other. Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
You know who the favorite is to take Danny's seat within F1 that everybody's kind of universally talking about? Pierre. Everybody says that's like the most logical transition, that Pierre is going to take that seat.
He hasn't done it this
I'd
year.
like to see it.
No,
but
he hasn't.
He's not making a very good argument for himself right now. That's another gut punch to me.
He's had a few bad luck races, but he's had a few dumbass races. He had a pretty good Monaco masterclass. The strat got a little ruined, but at first, when he was the first one on the dries, he was flying.
Yeah,
that was exciting.
Yeah, for a certain point there, it got really exciting with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of those races, it was drawn out long. We're at the point in the season. Things are a little bit set. We know what the battles are, so let's have fun. Hopefully something crazy happens. Someone turns it around and Mercedes maybe makes a fight, something like that. But we'll see. But we go into Baku, where if we are going to get a crazy race, this is one of the circuits where we can do it. A lot of overtaking. It feels like shit always goes awry. So I'm excited for these weekends. One of our first desert weekends of the year, is it?
It's a city circuit.
Yeah,
it's a city
circuit, but Baku is.
We had Bahrain to start. Azerbaijan, right?
Azerbaijan.
Exactly. We started the season with a desert race. But I mean, dude, listen. At the end of the day, Max is kind of coming into this with, you look at the F1 website, Max Etter's looking for some unfinished business. Like, obviously he had that crash last year with 2 laps to go, was the outright favorite to win that race. He had that win going by a mile.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's also got his partner breathing down his neck here. So, Max, I don't know. Max has an interesting storyline coming into this race, I think. It's gonna. I got both eyes glued to Red Bull right now. I really do.
Yeah, I really don't know what to expect from this one. I think this one's gonna be hard to predict. I'd be very interested to see what the odds on race winner are. I wonder if Red Bull has taken it at this point. But yeah, I don't. Is there anything else outside the sport that we're not touching on? I feel like it's kind of been a slow few weeks. Are we just at that kind of dog days of summer point where we're just going to duke it out for a few weeks here and then we hit summer break and then things ramp back up? It kind of feels
I think so. I mean, you're just touching on the track one more time though, and I don't know with these new regulations and the new cars. I mean, unless I'm wrong, if we all right, so we have had one pretty fast with slow corners track. I'm spacing on it right now. It's in Saudi. What's the Saudi? Miami. Yeah, Miami. What's the Saudi Arabian street track?
Jeddah.
Whatever. Jeddah is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
But like, this is not a Jeddah, but similar in the fast straights and it's it comes down to for this track, and I don't know. It's like Red Bull had that pace last year. Like, it was just the outright, like, oh, who's the fastest in the straights and stuff. They just got this. I think we've seen much tighter battles this year in those straights. And, to me, it's almost a pick 'em right now, who you think could take this race, honestly.
Yeah. Well, while we talk about odds, let's get into predictions. Let's just rattle off Carl's first because he isn't here.
I love his second place, that motherfucker. Wait to hear this one, people.
So, Carl, word for word, Sliding into points, Vettel, great track record here, 6th.
He does have that. That's actually.
And then 6th, he's going Lando. That's a very stock choice.
Yep.
I would say pretty much the most stock that you
Yep.
could have. Charles 3rd, George 2nd.
Yeah,
Clearly,
could happen.
Yeah,
can
could
see.
happen.
Could happen. I just don't want. I want him barred from picking George.
And then in first,
Always.
he didn't say Max. He said Maxi Pad.
Maxi
So
Pad,
you
yes.
guys can come at it for that.
Yep.
Oh my god.
In 6, Alonso for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna keep hammering this guy until he freaking gets one here.
He's really good, and he's
really
like,
good.
He's got a
and
big
we're
contract.
Due.
Yeah.
We're due. Who we got, Joe? 6th. Top 6.
Can we? So he went Lando.
You can go double up on me.
I know. Well, honestly, I mean, I was looking. I'm probably thinking of the same exact post that Carl read to pick that Vettel pick.
Well, Vettel's for points. He said he just threw that out there that Vettel gets points.
Oh, really?
Yep.
And then he
I was
wanted.
coming into this gonna say Vettel's gonna finish top 6.
That's
You
crazy.
can say that.
You could
It's
say
very
that.
crazy, but I
I'd
don't
like
know,
to
man.
see it.
Yeah, let's throw Vettel top 6.
I'm gonna say Valtteri is gonna get top 6 because he's the fucking man, and everybody knows it.
Mhm.
Celtics have the balls.
He's right on that. I'm not saying you're wrong because you can pick him, but he's right on that border of being like,
We almost can't
can you
say
pick
it.
him? Yeah, you almost like it's he. If he turns out a couple more
Yeah.
like results like he has, we're gonna have to bar him from being picked from top 6.
Mm.
Yeah. And then top 3.
Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Charles. Actually, no, I'm gonna go Carlos 3, Sergio 2, Max 1.
Whoa. Charles out of there.
Charles out of there.
I'm gonna say Mr. Baku, Sergio Perez wins a back-to-back and enters the lead of the World Driver Championship. Max is gonna come in 3rd, and right in between, we're gonna get a Lewis sandwich.
See, I started riding that Lewis train for the last couple races, thinking he was going to squeeze in there, but I don't know.
Here's I'm going race prediction. Charles tries to do a drastic move, pushes Mac off the track, gets a penalty. Max crashes, ends up in 3rd.
Whoa.
Gets a time penalty.
10 seconds.
Sergio wins the race, just like who said Carlos in 2nd.
Yes.
And who finishes 3rd in that crazy scenario? You just
Charles gets a time penalty for what he just did to Max. It's not an egregious thing that he did. Max crashes, gets a DNF.
Okay. And Charles finishes 3rd.
But he wins the race, but he gets the time
Okay.
penalty that puts him in 3rd.
Okay. Okay.
If that happens,
I mean, dude, if you
I
could
guess.
bet on that, you could retire.
Hell, suicide watch.
after Sunday. Yeah.
you guys would have to.
Yeah.
All right, I'm excited.
Very.
Is this an 8 a.m.er? This might be a weird one for us.
I hope.
It's an early one. I miss the early ones. Yeah.
Let's see.
Let me look. I got it right here. Hang on.
7 a.m.
7.
That's very early.
That's an hour too early for me.
Well, that's actually yeah, that's a little too early.
Very early. All right.
Well, that means that's very. I'll watch.
I'll talk to you
Let's
guys
go.
at 6.
Well,
yeah, dude. Shit.
Just kidding. I'm gonna miss my alarm.
Well, let's go win a basketball game.
Go
I'm
Celtics.
excited.
Go Celtics. Should have turned this into a Celtics podcast.
Let's go back. Ooh.